Yeah, but I wonder sort of how AI would play in philosophy in general, not just in university studies. Because at the moment I'm not sure how capable it is of producing original thought, but
It's not. I mean, it's really the nature of the thing. I mean, there's this kind of catastrophe hype mindset that AI will take over the world, but none of these softwares are doing anything like that.
yeah.
And they're just predicting which word most likely comes after which word, etc. That's all they do. They don't understand anything. They don't produce anything new in an interesting way. Of course, it's an interesting question. What is it to produce new thing in any case by human mind either?
Yeah,
Also.
I think. Yeah, it seems to me at least it's only generally useful in helping you maybe comprehend things and breaking things down into more digestible sort of.
Perhaps. I have to say I don't have. How we started, by the way.
Yeah.
I have to say I don't have enough experience of what it can actually do with a difficult philosophical text. Because I mean there is this thing when reads philosophical text, difficult philosophical text, one needs to get to the core ideas. And there is no formula for that. There's no kind of obvious way in how to find those core ideas. There's nothing you can give kind of program to an algorithm that would help it to find them. It can only have this kind of formal cues, something like that. But it's difficult for me to see how an AI program like the ones that we now have could make actually a difference between what's important and what's not important. And this goes back now to the topic that we discussed earlier about meaning. We touched upon that earlier. I mean, these programs don't have a clue about meaning, and a clue about what's important. What's important, what's relevant, that is something that only a mind that has concerns can make distinctions between. We humans are concerned of various things, like Heidegger says. Sorge is a kind of this concern is a kind of constitutive feature of our existence and mind, and this we're constitutively worried or concerned of how our lives will go, etc. And that worry generally kind of sets up relevant structure. Something is relevant for those worries, other things are not relevant. Some things are more important, other things are not important. Some things are good, other things are not good. And a being or an algorithm that is not a worrying being cannot make any of those distinctions. And therefore, I am skeptical of their capacity to distinguish between what in a text is important and what is not. Unless the text is written in a simple format where there's a kind of system in which those are generally distinguished within the text. And nothing like that exists in philosophy. I don't think should exist in philosophy. It should be a creative enterprise.
Yeah, I think, I was thinking as you were saying that as well, like, there are different levels of reading in books and difficulty of those books, but generally the structure seems to be that, at least in the form of essays and stuff like that, you can get the main points from maybe, if it's well written, the introduction and the conclusion will contain a brief summary of the main points that will be discussed. But as you said, if we were to just apply this formula to an AI, it would work for all the instances that the text it's reading does have that structure. However, once it encounters a text that doesn't have that structure, it sort of just falls apart. It will just apply that formula sort of without concern of whether it is actually important. And I think it seems to me what you're saying is we have a value system to decide what's relevant.
That's right. Values are kind of normatively, broadly speaking, is really constitutive of human mind and the human way of being in the world, and it does not exist for AI. It's not a concerned being. It doesn't have values. It doesn't have priorities, etc. except for those that can be somehow programmed into it.
Yeah.
That's not easy.
Yeah, I wonder, semantically speaking, or maybe epistemologically speaking, how would one program values into an AI, the human equivalent of values?
Well, we can do kind of mimicking there.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess that's important now. Kind of technological or technically important in robotics. There's all kinds of attempts to apply robotics, say in elderly care, etc., or kind of these human relations, human service roles. And I guess you have to be able to program behavior that mimics values and cares.
Yeah.
Like kind of expressions that sound like the expressions of a being that actually, say, cares about you or likes you. But of course, the thing itself cannot care or like. It just does not have a mind capable of that. It's not a being that has any values or priorities. We can make it mimic all kinds of things, but not have the real thing.
What interests me is then, I think human beings have always been able to look past certain maybe imperfections and all of that. And so I wonder whether we could get to a level where AI can mimic value systems and all these different things, but we as humans impose then the reality or the sentience of it all, because it fools us enough to the point that it replicates or mimics values well enough that we think they actually do, even though they don't.
Yeah. So these questions are like questions when say in autonomous steering cars, etc., and also in military robotics, etc. One needs to have some sort of algorithm for distinguishing between different cases. When to shoot, when not to shoot, and those algorithms, those programs have to be based or will be based on some sort of value decisions by those who program them into them, or the autonomous driving car, whether it will prior, if it sees a human being and sees something else there, which one it will hit, etc. Those kind of things will have to be written into it. But I think that concerns technology more broadly. All technology does reflect our value systems in one way or another. So that's of course perfectly possible and is happening at the moment. Now, with regard to the possibility of an artificial being that actually can care, that's an interesting challenge. I think it would have to be kind of built from the bottom up. It would have to be a living being, because only for living beings something is good and bad. And so in some relevant sense, it would have to be a living being that is concerned first of all of its own survival. That's the kind of driving thing for all living beings. The most important thing is whether to live or flourish or to die or wither away. That's already the kind of organizing principle for plant life, and then for animal life. Now, of course, that's also problematic because that's also the root of all evil. Because my survival might mean your death, or the other way around. So starting it from there basically is kind of starting the world again, and we know that that's a nasty process. All kinds of nasty things have happened and will continue happening. So yeah.
Yeah, I wonder whether, I don't wonder actually. I'm sure that at some point someone will try to inject that sort of survival value as it's very as the most core component of an AI's mind or whatever. And I think from that point onwards, the question of whether it would be a living being and whether it's sentient would become very much more real.
Yeah. So it would be a living being in that sense that it is concerned of its own existence, And there's of course these figures in science fiction, say the computer HAL in Space Odyssey 2001, whatever that was, who wants to kill the human being because the human being wants to kill it, basically, or shut it down, etc.
Yeah.
So it's kind of what dystopian nightmares are made. That's how humanity will end. I don't know if there's any kind of, if it's a real option or whatever, but something to be concerned about. But anyway, I don't think this generative AI thing is doing at the moment anything like that.
Yeah, I think we're safe.
We are talking about two quite different things. Yeah.
Yeah.